Good morning. My name is Mary Blanton and I'm your service coordinator on this January 11th Sunday. Yesterday when I read the weather report, I thought, I don't think I'm going to be here today because the weather report for Barnard said up to 1/10 of an inch of ice and 3 inches of snow, which if it fell on my already icy driveway would not have been a good combination. Fortunately, that didn't happen. And it's cloudy here in Woodstock, but the sun came out in Barnard and the trees were covered with ice. It was like a fairyland. So hopefully you will all see this at some point if you go up in a higher elevation today. So our minister, Leon Dunkley, will be giving the reflection today titled, Why Does Poison Ivy Grow in Eden's Garden? I never used to have poison ivy in Barnard, and then somebody trucked in a whole load of gravel on a road and suddenly there's poison ivy. And I used to think of Barnard as Eden, so it does grow in Eden.
So I want to announce a film project that we've been working on and that we're going to be unfolding in the next few months. It's a challenging film program. I'll say more about it later, with challenging premises. There will be 7 films, all which feature the triumphant and heroic stories of women in weird ways. They will not be like straight up and down like the chick flick series. Although one of them is Thelma and Louise, which is the best cowboy film I've ever seen. Okay. But that series was going to begin in March, and all of those films are going to be interpreted by way of a code. All of them have a code. So there's a secret to understanding them. And I'll say more of this as things go on. But there are 3 films that will be showing over the next 2 months that will unlock the code of those films. And the first film, although we haven't picked a date yet, the first film will be Star Trek First Contact. Okay. The second film will be Quiz Show, the Robert Redford film about the Van Doren quiz show scandal in the late 50s. And the third film will be the 1961 film called Judgment at Nuremberg. And I guarantee you, it's awesome. So as you see things coming up, please look into them. We're fortunate to have some people from Verscher, from the Mountain School, coming to join us and to help to deliver it. So more will unfold, but gear up, cowboy up, let's go, Lourdes Chapel, let's go do this thing. Thanks.
So Tatum is here today for spiritual education. And after the service, please come downstairs and join us for coffee hour. There are lots of goodies, and it's a great time to catch up with other people in our congregation. And last, please turn off anything that buzzes, jingles, or beeps. Our January worship theme is freedom. Freedom. We come from a people bound for freedom, determined to loosen the fetters of orthodoxy, determined to loosen the fetters of white supremacy, determined to loosen the fetters of patriarchy, determined to loosen the fetters of all that dehumanizes and separates us from our dignity and sacred worth. We are bound for freedom, building on foundations laid before us. Last Sunday, when we had people sharing their thoughts about freedom, the 3 of the speakers talked about freedom from the perspective of the words that I just read. They spoke of personal freedom from outside situations, such as the Palestinian situation, racism, and our government. Seth, however, spoke from a Buddhist perspective about inner freedom and the idea of freeing ourselves from the ways of our conditioned thinking and acting. I discovered Buddhism when I was struggling with a divorce. I was an off and on, serious and not so serious practitioner for 16 or 17 years. Then in 2008, I went to Ann Dean's Blessing Circle and discovered oneness. There were many similarities between Buddhism, but oneness was a better fit for me. Now, almost 20 years later, a daily practice is important to me, and I see the benefits of it in my everyday life. I will begin by sharing words of Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, and then move on to oneness. So here are words by Thich Nhat Hanh. For me, there is no happiness without freedom. And freedom is not given to by anyone. We have to cultivate it ourselves. By freedom, I mean freedom from afflictions, from anger, and from despair. If you have anger in you, you have to transform the anger in order to get your freedom back. If there is despair in you, you need to recognize that energy and not allow it to overwhelm you. You have to practice in such a way that you transform the energy of despair and attain the freedom you deserve, freedom from despair. By cultivating freedom for yourself, you will be able to help the people you live with. Even though you live in the same place, with the same physical and material conditions, if you practice, you will be a much freer person, a more solid person. So oneness philosophy describes the path to inner freedom by simply saying we live in only two states, a suffering state or a non-suffering state. In a suffering state, we are either caught up in the past or the future, feeling emotions such as anxiety, loneliness, sadness, and stress. In a non-suffering or beautiful state, we are living in the present moment in states such as peace, joy, love, and gratitude. A simple teaching, but in our crazy world, it's hard to navigate the situations in our lives without being dragged into a suffering state. We so often operate on automatic pilot, not really knowing how we're feeling, so we act from old habits, childhood patterns, or societal conditioning. Both oneness and Buddhist teachings encourage us to pause, taking time to reflect on how we're feeling and then choose how to respond. Hence, awareness becomes an important part of the practice. My daily meditation and breathing practice helps me check in with myself and at least try to begin my day in a beautiful state. I will be heading to India on Tuesday for a month of silence and learning. It's another step for me on the path to hopefully learning to live more of my life in a non-suffering, or as they call it, a beautiful or enlightened state. I would like to close with a few quotes from Krishnaji and Preetaji, who are the oneness enlightened teachers. Enlightenment is freedom. Freedom is freedom to experience the present moment. Freedom is not weakness, it is intelligence. It is a state of mind that permits freedom, happiness, and love in relationships. Then they ask the question, what is it like to live in a beautiful non-suffering state? It is to have achievement without aggression, relationships free of hurt, and to live life free of fear.
Do you remember your dreams? I almost never do. But a friend of mine had a beautiful dream, and I want to share it with you. Is that okay? She wrote a little story about it. She wrote this. That was such a lovely dream. The streets were golden in the sun. I'd never been to Venezuela, but my family was all there, and my mother looked so young. Venezuela looks like Brooklyn. but the streets are twice as wide. Children spun around the trees like little tops, like little Sufis, and mamas smiled from inside. Oh, Fernando, I'm so sorry for the love you saved for me, but my heart is locked forever in another lovely dream. He approached me like a prince, and he said he'd love me all his life. He said he knew that I'd be here, that he'd waited all these years, and that I meant to be his wife. And my sister was so jealous for the love he had for me. She went stomping across the square with rigid arms and flying hair, and her skirt had many layers, and it bounced like Sandra Dee's. Oh, Fernando, I'm so sorry. Whatever could I say to the man I've never met, who's the one who got away? I cried to see his heart so plainly, for he was such a formal man, handed to me like a daisy in the presence of my family from his damp and shaking hand. I said, Fernando, I can't stay here. And a clock began to chime. And I opened up my shirt, and in its bony cage ticked a paper valentine. Oh, Fernando, I'm so sorry for the love you had for me, but my heart is locked forever in another lovely dream. Oh, Fernando, I'm so sorry. Whatever could I say to a man I've never met, who's the one who got away? I love to be able to dream of different places around the world. And I planned to create a service around that song in the earlier part of this week when news came about the United States actions in South America, a place that many of us have not been, a place that we can dream into our imagination and into our lives, a place that is not so far away. And then came another set of news stories. And I was affected by both of those news cycles. At the end of this service, I'm going to ask that we sing Breathe In and Breathe Out to settle into ourselves and remember what love feels like in a full body, in a whole, relaxed, full self, losing no parts of ourselves. Let no single part of us be gone when we sing that song. But for now, I'll begin with a poem, or part of a poem. Make room for wonder was one of its lines. Make room for wonder, she said, standing gently in her power. Make room for that which is daring, for that which is dangerous, even now, especially now. Make room for wonder, she said. Wonder is cheeky, and wonder is golden, and maybe four-legged soon. And wonder is playful as retrievers. Wonder is as joyful as unbound and as winsome puppies that still look and smell like heaven. Wonder knows water, and water knows rain, and rain knows trickle and brook, creek and stream and river. River knows how to flow. River has always known how to flow, has known how to waterfall over mountains, has known how to carve stone into canyons. Its art moves slowly over time. Its processes are not visible in lifetimes. The gift that rivers deliver to the world's imagination opens slowly. The gift opens like the opposite of Christmas morning. It does not rush. Its waters may rush, but its gift does not. It blossoms up like friendship. It blooms just like forgiveness. It flowers like gentleness and grace, so make room for wonder. It's a flower under God, a flower of humility, the most precious thing in Eden's garden. The most precious thing, except for life itself. Life is Eden's most precious gift. Life is heaven's most precious gift. Life is God's most precious gift, however it is that you experience God, however it is that you find heaven, however it is that you bear witness to that which is beyond life, that which is beyond death, that which is beyond us all. A poet, a Minnesotan named Renee Nicole Good. She wrote about such things in her poetry. She wrote about life and God and wonder and heaven and what is beyond us all. She wrote this one poem years ago. Her name was different back then. Renee Nicole Macklin, I believe. This was before her second husband passed away. In it, she struggled with the very idea of God, and many of us do, because she saw the holy in so many different things, and because she questioned what she saw, and because she doubted what she saw, and because she wondered about the holy in so many different ways. She sat along the shoreline in a rocking chair at sunset, and she thought about what was sacred to her. And she sat within an IHOP at the corner of Powers and Stetson. She mentions both of these locations in her poetry. I Googled IHOP and that location, the International House of Pancakes. I wanted to know if it was real, and it is. It's in Colorado Springs at 5749 Stetson Hill Boulevard. That's where she's from. Renee is from Colorado Springs. 719-597-0123. If we call right now, we can start our order, and it will be ready by the time we get there. Just imagine all of us showing up for breakfast, unloading our luggage in the Rocky Mountains and pouring out of a bus bound for glory from central Vermont, just because of the strength of Renee's poetry and just because of the beauty of her life. I also checked my GPS. It will take us about 28 hours to get there. So if we leave right after the service or right after the meeting that we're going to have about Venezuela and the news right after this service, we should get there tomorrow afternoon around 4 if we do not stop along the way. So go before you get on the bus. We could all eat international pancakes in her honor. Renee wrote about an IHOP in her poetry. At the same time, she reminded us to make room for wonder. And that's so deep. She wrote about how to reconcile the sacred and the secular. She wrote about how to reconcile science and religion. And by science, I mean the study of life, which was the area of interest to her. And by religion, I mean the religions of all the world, not just Christianity. She wanted to make, that's such a brave cry out there. I really love that song. Renee wanted to make real faith in every day. She wanted to make meaning of real faith in every day. Every corner of the world is a shrine. She believed this, and I love this about her. Here's an excerpt from her poetry. She wrote, I donated Bibles to thrift stores, mashed them into plastic trash bags with an acidic Himalayan salt lamp. The post-baptism Bibles, the ones plucked from street corners from the meaty hands of zealots and dumbed down, the easy-to-read parasitic kind. I remember more the rubber smell of high-gloss biology textbook pictures. They burned the hairs inside of my nostrils, and salt and ink that rubbed off on my palms under the clippings of the moon. At 2:45 a.m., I study and repeat ribosome, endoplasmic, lactic acid, stamen, at the IHOP on the corner of Powers and Stetson Hills. Biology and the Bible, a blueberry muffin, and coffee refills. She was studying ribosomes and endoplasmic reticulum, the production of protein in the body, lactic acid, which is needed for metabolism, and the stamen, which is a part of the sexual reproductive process in flowers. In the wee hours of the morning, Renee studied the livingness of things. She was into it. And apparently she took decent notes. The next passage of her poem reads as follows. I repeated and I scribbled until it picked its way and stagnated somewhere in a place that I can't point to anymore, maybe in my gut. Maybe there, in between my pancreas and my large intestine, is the piddly brook of my soul. It's the ruler by which I reduce all things now, hard-edged and splintering from knowledge that used to sit a cloth against my feverish forehead. Can I let them both be? She was holding on to two different splintering parts of herself. She was remembering herself. She was recollecting herself. She was collecting the two parts of herself that had broken from one another, that had been removed from one another, that had been held off or cut away from one another. She was remembering her full self again. She was recollecting her fullness, both parts of her wholeness, the science part and the brook of the soul part, against which she measured everything. Renee was in the process of aligning her two sides, soul level deep. Can I let them both be, she asked in her poem. Continuing, she writes, this fickle faith and this college science that heckles from the back of the classroom. Now I can't believe that the Bible and the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita are sliding along my long hairs behind my ear like my mom used to, and exhaling from their mouths, make room for wonder. All of my understanding dribbles down my chin and onto my chest and is summarized as life is merely to ovum and sperm, where those two meet, how often and how well, and what dies there. Presaging her death, and mine, and ours, she implores us to make room for wonder. Wonder is non-sectarian. It does not have a favorite baseball team. If it does, it's the Red Sox, but it doesn't. Wonder is not righteous or distinguished in any way. It isn't partisan. It isn't an idiot. It doesn't know how to take sides, and if it did know, it would not choose to take sides. Wonder does not abandon any of us when we surrender it. Wonder does not foreclose on us. Wonder does not forsake us. The same is true of faith, although we surely feel alone sometimes. We can be moved towards wholeness by the healthy and blessed embrace of the Bible, the Quran, or the Bhagavad Gita. Renee Good reminds us of this. The death that she met was horrifying and administratively mundane. The continuing result of a spectacular set of errors and a failure of leadership at the highest of levels. A process that started many years ago. The casual brutality that we're seeing now, the dangerous, unceremonious, life-taking banality that we are seeing is shocking, but only if we imagine that it started on January the 7th. In the moments after a 37-year-old mother of three had dropped off her children, and on her way back home decided to fight a little bit for justice. What if we consider that this life-threatening brutality, this life-taking banality did not start on January the 7th of 2026, but a little bit earlier, not on January the 6th of 2006, when 2,000 agents were sent to Minnesota to carry out the single largest anti-immigration exercise in American history. And not on January 6th of 2021, when the Capitol was under siege. The picture on the cover of your orders of service is the plaque that was commissioned years ago now and was completed years ago now, but that remained in an office closet because we would not hang it on the wall, because we are not yet agreed upon the story of January 6th. This is one of the ways we have been broken from one another. This is where we can begin to heal. I went to the gathering at Tribal Park yesterday. I became part of the resistance, the radical 60 and 70 and 80-year-old resistance. Look out. I became one with those who believe that we should stop delivering violence to women. I joined with those who believe that we should stop delivering violence of any kind, violence of every kind to one another. There were about 70 of us there trying to remember something that was sacred, and we did just that with our smiles and with our togetherness. The Holy showed up immediately. It had been there all along, but suddenly we were ready to see it as a group. The Holy showed up in signs and in candles. It showed up in prayer and in silences. The Holy drove by and honked its car horns and gave us the thumbs up sign. And the Holy walked by and waved, or didn't wave. And the Holy walked by and said hello, or did not say hello. Then the Holy joined together or walked away, seemingly unmoved, only to quickly cross to the other side of the street and turn around to take another look on the way back to where they had been, without risking personal interaction. And occasionally, the Holy drove by and cried out of rolled down windows without slowing down enough to fully hear what they were saying, although it was impossible not to get the gist. It was sad and a little bit confusing. It takes the wind out of your sail to feel negativity like that. One time, the Holy drove by and gave us the finger. That was clear. We understood what they were saying. Even though the situation in which we all have found ourselves, no matter what our politics, was really not easy to make sense of. Some of us feel one way and others of us feel another way. We have not yet agreed upon the story. Renee might ask, can we let them both be? Is that possible? There's a hymn in our hymnal, a tradition in our faith tradition called the oneness of everything. The hymn means nothing if it is not meaningful for us here. We will not sing it today. It's too early. The dust has not settled. The smoke has not cleared. It's too soon to let its energy flow through our bodies. The time is not right for the music, but the words are important for us now. The right time is coming, but we are not there just yet. The opening words of that hymn are these: far beyond the grasp of hands, or light to meet the eye, past the reaches of the mind. There, we find the key to nature's harmony in an architecture so entwined. Like birds whose patterns grace the sky and carry all who join in love expanding, the message of peace will rise in flight, taking the weight of the world upon its wings, in the oneness of everything. I love this idea of oneness. This feeling of not being shattered from ourselves in any way. This feeling of not being broken from one another. It feels deeply familiar somehow. It feels wonderful, like a familiar story. Out of the ground made the Lord to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, the tree of knowledge and of good and evil. This idea of oneness feels so wonderful to me because it reminds me of the Garden of Eden story in the Bible. When we are fractured one another, it reminds me of the feeling of being expelled from the garden. Joni Mitchell asks us to get back to the garden, and maybe all we need to do just that is to remember who we are and return in love and return in grace and return in the full knowledge that love is the deeper measure of our living. A closing poem before our song will be from David Wilcox. He writes, "When you say you see no hope, and when you say you see no reason we should dream that the world will ever change, when you're saying that love is foolish to believe because there'll always be some crazy with an army or a knife to wake you from the daydream and put the fear back in your life, we can say, look, if someone wrote a play just to glorify what's stronger than hate, would they not arrange the stage to look as if the hero came too late? And it's almost in defeat. And when it's looking like the evil side will win, on the edge of every seat from the moment that the whole thing begins, it is love that mixed the mortar. It is love that stacked these stones. And it is love that made the stage here, though it feels like we're alone. And in this scene that's set in shadows, like the night is here to stay, there is evil cast around us, but it is love that wrote the play." One of the most beautiful people I've ever known once said this to me. She said, "Never be afraid to return the beauty that is missing from the world." The poem that we read 2 weeks ago during the sermon had a phrase in it that said, she loved my baby girl just like the summer loves a storm. And she said, "You are an old soul that I've known since the very day that you were born. So tell me your secrets. You just came from where I'm going. Who are you? Are you a little piece of God? Come down for me to hold. Are you a little piece of God?" I imagine that if this puppy does come my way, that I will hold him, because I know it's a him, like a little piece of God. The way we could have held Renee. The way we still can hold one another if her lesson reaches us. So let's be brave enough to answer her beauty with our own and take our love as the final measure of our worth and our dignity as we move forward into this beautiful, brave, and sunlit day. May it be so. Thank you, Renee. Blessed be, and amen.